Hello and welcome to the 14th episode of the Redwood Real Estate Report. I'm Ben Larson with Larson Home Loans.
And I'm Annalise von Borstel with Hyperion Humboldt Realty.
All right, and here we are closing out the first quarter of 2026 and moving into and looking forward to the remainder of the year. We'll touch on what's been going on in markets, and it's been a bit of a bumpy ride, but
Yes.
I'll break that down a little bit for you on the rate side, and then Annalise will take you into the local MLS numbers and housing market numbers, and we'll break it down for you and make sense of everything that's going on locally
Mhm.
and with all the pressures that are happening in markets around us. I'll go ahead and kick it off. I think I have
Yeah.
a little bit about interest rates, a lot going on.
Yeah, I've heard some things.
You've heard some
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
so
yeah.
tell me.
Yeah,
Tell me
there's I'm
more.
sure there's lots of noise out there in the rate markets. So the month of February, we kicked off the month at a 6.11% rate, which was a great trend from January. We've been on a downward trend the last several months.
Right.
Uh,
Well,
the
we hit a 3-year low, was it, in
We did.
February?
Yeah, February, we did dip just below the monthly low was 5.98. We touched just below 6% there for the first time, which was at the very end of the month. And the monthly high was at the very beginning of the month on February 2nd at 6.11. So a downward trend, just slowly trickling down. Not a ton of movement. You know what? We're only looking at a 0.14, 0.13 movement over the course of the whole month. And we did see a 3-year low. Now, moving into March, we kicked off the month of March at a 6% national average. And again, this is with about 0.9 of a point paid down on the rate in discount points. The monthly high was March 26th at 6.38. So right at the very end of the month was our high, the low at the beginning of the month. So that's the opposite trend of what we've seen really for the last 9-10 months.
Not the direction we want to be
Right.
going.
It's been the high at the beginning of the month, low at the end of the month, and that's continued month over month over month for several months. So and because of what's gone on in global markets, I did pull interest rates up through April 2nd, the most current
Mhm.
data available, and we're up to about 6.57%.
That's a big jump.
So we're seeing again from the last week of March, 6.38 to the first week of April, 6.57. So we've seen from the end of February, 5.98 up to current rates on that mid 6 range.
So Ben, do you start immediately seeing the effect on the number of applications you're receiving?
So moving into my next market key of the month, I talk about application volume. Refinance volume is extremely rate sensitive. So you essentially see refinance applications just fall off a cliff, which is exactly what we've seen over the last couple weeks. A lot of those people have been waiting in the wings to time the market to get the best rate available. The rate lock on a refinance transaction, you're really playing the rate game. On a purchase, you have a finite window when you have to close that loan. So you're looking at a 30 to 45 day window, sometimes even shorter, 21 days. So you kind of, as soon as you see a little dip on a purchase, you call your client, you lock that rate on a good day of the week. On a refi, you could have clients waiting 2 or 3 months, to try to maximize their savings over the next 25, however many years that they're going to take to pay off that loan. However, the purchase market application volume remains strong, still above year over year this year compared to last year. So again, there's been an adjustment in buyers' minds where they've really become more comfortable and accepted a higher rate
Right.
environment.
Mhm.
And of course, this is kind of peak purchase season, being that we're now in the middle of spring here or beginning of spring, but it feels like the middle with the weather we've been having. So the purchase market applications have remained strong. Refis fallen off a cliff, of course, and with the purchase market applications, there's a shift in lender strategies, like offering things like buy downs on interest rates, which you can do a permanent buy down through buying discount points. And then there's other lenders that offer temporary buy downs where you can buy your interest rate down anywhere from 1% to 2%. And you can get a seller credit to accomplish those goals. So that can be negotiated between your realtors during the purchase negotiation process, and that can give you some temporary relief. Um, that's essentially paid for through the negotiated purchase price of the
Mhm.
property. And then with the hope that whatever your window is, if you do a 1-year buy down or 2-year buy down, the hope is that you can refinance your mortgage in that window and get something closer to the rate that you had on the buy down than what it would have been otherwise. That's kind of the hope with those temporary buy downs.
Well, it's good to have options.
Yeah, and the permanent buy down, of course, you're locked into that lower rate for the life of the loan. And then, of course, there's ARMs.
Can you tell everyone what an ARM
So an
is?
ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, is what that stands for. And when I talk about ARMs, we're not talking about the ARMs with big balloon payments or the type of loans that had a really bad rap during, you know, 08, 09 when we had
Mhm.
the big real estate crash. Those were a lot of predatory adjustable rate loans. I'm talking more of loans that have caps on how much your rate can increase. They're usually fixed for a period of 3, 5, or 7 years. So again, if you can get a half or a 0.75% lower interest rate on an ARM, and you say you lock that lower rate in for 3, 5, or 7 years, the hope is that you can refinance in that window, get a lower rate, and then you're saving the money every month right from the very beginning, rather than playing the rate game and waiting for rates to come down to refinance. Of course, you still want to time the market, get the best rate you can on a refi if you're in an ARM, just so you're locked in for the life of your loan. And then there's creative structuring. There's everything from hard money financing. There's like a 90-10-10 where you combine an equity line to put in part of your down payment. There's all kinds of strategies. So this is when lenders can make their money and prove their worth and show their experience and their product knowledge with their clients. So make sure that you have a knowledgeable lender and they're able to explore all the options that are available to you when you're buying a home.
Yeah, it's good to be creative, think outside the box. Definitely good to have someone who knows options and, isn't limited to maybe some of the conventional lending
Yeah, if
options.
you're only looking at 30-year fixed rate mortgages, FHA versus conventional right now in this particular window that we're in, hopefully it doesn't last that long,
Mhm.
but getting creative right now is really what can make a difference for
Great.
you. Well, that's my keys of the month, Annalise.
Okay, yes. Well, I definitely have the updates for the market and how we performed in March, but I do want to start by saying that it's important to keep in mind that everything that happened in the last 4 weeks and that's happening currently, most of the data captured for the month of March is actually reflecting contracts that were signed in February or
Mhm.
even January. So April's numbers and May's numbers will likely show more obvious signs of a changing trend, but March's numbers are showing a lot of similar trends to what we saw at the start of the year in January and February. Although it does sound like new purchase applications are still coming in, so hopefully those do result in new contracts as well and closed escrows in April and May. But so far for the first quarter of 2026, it has been healthy overall. Total sales were up slightly compared with last March, year to date up almost 9%. And even pending sales were up about 9.5% from last April. Maybe that's a reflection of those applications, the new purchase applications still being strong. So hopefully those transactions again make it to closing in April and May. The absorption rate continued to drop for now the ninth month in a row, now comfortably back in seller's market territory at 4.11 months for March and 4.2 months year to date. Last year, both those figures were in the 5-month range. So now we're more typical of a balanced market. Days on the market is also heading back down again after a bit of a jump in February. Now sellers can expect that their homes are going to stay on the market for about 37 days before going into contract, compared with last March when sellers were waiting 50 days. I could tell you, feet on the ground, 13 days, that difference between 37 and 50, you feel it emotionally. So that's feeling better for sellers right now. Homes sold in March on average for about 93% of their list price. So how are Humboldt's larger markets doing? We'll start in Eureka, as always. Total number of sales are down very slightly year to date compared with 2025. We've had 63 sales in Eureka so far, and by this time last year, we had 66. But median sold prices have climbed about 2.75%. Pending sales are also down, but median days on the market, along with a falling absorption rate, indicate there is still healthy interest in the market as we head into the traditional kickoff of the real estate season. The absorption rate is down nearly 25% year to date in Eureka. Fortuna's total sales are up 11.5% year to date, and sold to list ratio has hovered around 98% for the last 2 months. And even though median sold price took a dip for the second month in a row, year to date, that number is still up nearly 1.5%. Slower months for Arcata and McKinleyville with just 4 total sales, although that is twice the number of sales Arcata had last March. Still very much a seller's market in McKinleyville with an absorption rate below 2 months.
Wow.
And March's median days on the market was just 7.
Wow.
So while total sales in McKinleyville was down for the month, year to date, they're up nearly 30%, and sold to list ratio is at 96.5%. In Arcata, with just 2 sales in March of 2025 and a median sale price of $281,950, that was in 2025, the month-to-month numbers look really impressive, right? A 50% increase in total sales and a 77% increase in the median sold price. But year-to-date figures are more muted and are probably a better indication of the market overall, honestly. A 14% increase in total number of sales and a 2% decrease in median sold price. Sold to list ratio is just under 90%, and that's the lowest of all 4 major markets that we typically discuss here on the Redwood Real Estate Report. I think that 90% sold to list ratio is probably still reflecting the change in demand with the new dorms opening up. We're going to probably see that working its way through the system over the next year or so. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, the market share report. So overall, Humboldt saw 78 total sales, which is up 22% from February, and a median sold price of $408,000, which is down 3% from February. Eureka had just 26 sales, 33.3%, which is a full third of all the sales in Humboldt. Median sale price of also $408,000, coincidentally. Fortuna had 9 sales, 11.5%, with a median sale price of $403,000. McKinleyville with 4 sales, 5.1% of the market, and a median sale price of $492,500. And Arcata also with just 4 sales, 5.1% of market, median sale price $500,000. And you may remember last month that we talked about how odd it was that all of those 4 markets combined had less than 50% of the total sales in Humboldt, because we typically see closer to 60%. That may have been an anomaly after all, because we are back to 55% between those 4 markets for March. So those are my keys of the month. Again, March seems like it was trending pretty similar to January, February. Still a solid first quarter for the year. But I think we're going to be seeing those higher interest rates, higher gas prices affecting sales in the coming months, assuming things stay where they're at right now.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how we kick off quarter 2 here. I guess we'll find out shortly, won't we? The data you're showing about absorption rates coming down and days on market coming down, that jives with everything that I've been hearing and reading about inventory pressure and things like that are moving, that would support that moving in that direction.
Yeah, again, it's just these are lagging indicators. So we're going
Yeah.
to see what's actually current showing up in contracts that were signed throughout March in closings for April and May.
Yeah, but for McKinleyville with an absorption rate of 2 months or somewhere around there. I
And
mean,
4 sales.
yeah, right. So inventory though
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
there's just not
McKinleyville's
much inventory, which is a sign that it's a seller's market. The data supports that things are moving in McKinleyville faster than they're coming on the market.
Yep, as long as properties are priced strategically, they're going to sell. This is still a seller's market overall in Humboldt, and especially in McKinleyville and some of those more higher demand
Yeah.
areas, for sure. Nothing drastic at this point. We're
All
going to
right.
see what the numbers bring in the next coming months. I'll talk about my featured listing of the month. 1085 Tip Top Ridge Road, a little different. This is a sprawling 20 acres of stunning timber producing property. So it's land. There is a little cabin on the property noted in the Humboldt County property characteristics, but that cabin has since been removed from the property, but it is zoned for ag and residential. There's panoramic views of the surrounding forest, and once those trees are limbed up or harvested, you could see out to the ocean, even to Trinidad Head. So whether you're looking for a retreat with a homesteading potential or an investment in your future, this could be the spot for you. Again, that's 20 acres, Tip Top Ridge in Fieldbrook, and we're listed at $649. I'm going to move on to community events because I have some exciting news. On April 30th, our very own Christy Mast with Hyperion Humboldt Realty is going to be hosting a home buying in Humboldt seminar at the Adorney Center. Seating is limited and registration is required, but we're going to have some great information for folks that are interested in buying their first home. Maybe they don't know what questions to ask, or maybe they have some very specific asks they want to bring to the seminar. So again, that's April 30th. Registration is required. You can reach out at HyperionHumboldt.com or give Christy a call, and we'll get you on our list. If April 30th at 5 o'clock doesn't work for you, of course, I'm sure that Christy or I would be happy to meet with you one-on-one in a private consultation about home buying in Humboldt and what that could look like for you. All right, so that's my exciting community event.
That sounds great. And those seminars are so useful for especially first-time home buyers, people who've never bought before. It can really be eye-opening and motivating because they can really remove a lot of the unknown and the fear that you might have if you've just never had a discussion around that process.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a low-pressure environment. Nobody's expecting you to buy a home tomorrow. This is just literally to get your questions answered and get you on track if that's a goal that you have in your future. We want to get you set up so that when the moment is right, you can make your move.
Yeah, and like you said, nobody expects an immediate response. I mean, a lot of times when you're a first-time home buyer, you could be a year, even 2 years out. So doesn't hurt to start the process. The sooner you start it, the sooner you can get there. So keep that in mind.
And Ben, you've got some exciting news too, right? You want to share? What's going on?
So my sweetie May is hosting a pop-up dinner April 10th and 11th at the Alchemy Distillery Tasting Room. She also is doing a Mother's Day brunch at Bittersweet, her normal spot. She's there every Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So, and we did an Easter brunch this last weekend. It was fantastic.
The weather was amazing.
The weather was great. People came out. You have a cider. You have some really good brunch. She did a steak and eggs, which was Penang curry beef. It was super good. She did a pork belly Benedict that was absolutely amazing. Everything she does is so good. So April 10th and 11th at Alchemy Distillery Tasting Room in South G Street in Arcata. Catch May Saricharon doing her pop-up there. And they do pop-ups there about once or twice a month throughout the year. In my opinion, those are the best date night out that you can do in Humboldt County. So take your wife, take your girlfriend, go have something unique. It's a chef takeover type of event with custom cocktails catered to the type of food being served. A lot of times it's international cuisines. It's something unique every time. So if you've never been, highly recommend checking them out.
Fun.
Yeah. And then, of course, Arts Alive with the weather kicking up. We have the Arts Alive, the Arcata Farmer Market on Saturdays. I just went to that this weekend. The weather's beautiful. All the fruits and vegetables are coming into season. So don't forget to hit your usual suspects as the weather brightens up and warms up. Everything is coming into bloom, and it's a beautiful time to be out and about in Humboldt County.
Well, and Ben, you also have an exciting new endeavor these next couple months.
Oh, yeah. My run for office. That's right.
That's what I was talking about.
Ben Larson.
You want to let the people know?
I'm running for Humboldt County Assessor. So thanks, Annalise, for prompting that. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I think it'd be great to have someone from the real estate industry enter that office and have a business professional perspective involved there. It's a critical piece to the county infrastructure.
You wanted to speak a little bit, maybe a minute or so, on how the county assessor affects homeowners specifically?
Absolutely. So one thing that would be a priority for me is to cut down turn times on reassessments when there's a transfer of ownership. and also a clear letter explaining how supplemental taxes work to new
Mm.
homeowners or anytime there's a transfer of ownership. And also just keeping an open line of communication between anytime there's a transfer of a property, it's going to pop up on a list, it's going to be populated. The assessor's office is going to get that as a trigger event for them to take action, either reassess it or identify if it's a Prop 13 or Prop 19 where the value doesn't change if it's a direct transfer to family. And so I want to clearly explain those situations to buyers, especially the supplemental tax bill piece.
Mhm.
That's something, if you have an escrow account, you assume your account is set up to pay all of those. Well, we're seeing lenders not always pay those. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. A lot of times they don't.
Usually
And the
they don't.
homeowner's on the hook to pay
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
So, and that could be anywhere from a few $100s to a couple $1,000s, depending on the difference from the previous assessed value to the change in value upon transfer of title.
Well, Ben, it definitely sounds like you're bringing a lot of expertise to the role. So I wish you the very best of luck in your campaign. And
Thank you so
with
much.
that, I think that is our Redwood Real Estate Report reviewing the month of March 2026. I'm Annalise von Borstel with Hyperion Humboldt Realty.
And I'm Ben Larson with Larson Home Loans.